Good evening. Welcome to SF Liberal Buzz. I'm Denise Dory, your host, and I'm sadly learning of the news of the church massacre by that monster who doesn't represent myself or anyone with light skin that I know, because I don't hang out with people who like him, and I wouldn't hang out with him. I hope nobody hangs out with haters. If you do, it's best to isolate haters. I'd like a moment of silence for those. And thank you for tuning in. Our hearts go out to their families. And it's just shocking. The whole country is in shock, and we've got to heal this. We can do better than this. We can. We've got to. So I'm going to go through Twitter, and I'm not very chirpy today because of this news we heard. Okay, so did you know that the massive, highly toxic algae bloom fuels total marine ecosystem collapse? And why is the media being so silent about it? That's what I was wondering. You've got to wonder why. And attorney Joe Marmon lawsuit against Shasta County for ignoring the chemtrail tests. We've got to start somewhere. It's going to have to go through the courts, because they're spraying the skies, and that's why it isn't raining, people. It's a good possibility. And the Charleston shooter was on drugs, which doesn't make any excuse for him targeting black people. It doesn't. So, more citizen journalism. It's our only weapon against corporate propaganda. This is a new Critical. I've just started following now. I give them a follow too. They're great. They've got interesting, hard-hitting stories that I like to read about. Now, the biggest money maker of all time is cancer, and why the profiteers don't want a cure. And petrochemical and hemp suppression. And it's good to freeze lemons. Now there's other things that are being hidden from the public. And they had the Bilderberg Convention, and meanwhile the media did not mention it at all. They just didn't. They didn't talk about the Bilderbergs, who are a very powerful, influential family who own like, there's 13 families like the Bilderbergs. There's other ones. So I don't have time to talk about them right now, but it's on Twitter. It's all over. Read it. Just type in Bilderberg and you'll get him. Yay, Warriors. Warriors, yay. Woohoo. We got a call. Hello, caller.
Hey, Richard. Listen, I think something that we need to focus on is the amount of disinformation, propaganda, and lack of critical thinking on the citizenry.
Yes. Calling us conspiracy theorists all the time. I know.
Well, yeah, they've taken over the verbiage and turned it around. That's a very powerful tool. Real quick, I have a suggestion. This is a very high-tech area that we live in.
Yeah.
I think one way to ensure fair elections, which is probably the last remaining thread of control we might have to save our society, is to have clear and transparent elections. And we could probably do this with the technology to create, I'd like to call it a window or a door where you could look and check on your vote in an open forum anywhere in the world. You could, even friends could call up and say, hey, here's the last 4 digits of my social and whatever other part of your name. Look it up on some database around the world, anywhere, open forum, and you can check and see if a vote has been registered correctly and tabulated correctly, and let's just take the power back from these scumbags that are destroying this beautiful planet.
That's a marvelous call. I really appreciate your thoughts.
Hey, man, you're welcome, and I really appreciate what you're doing. You're
Well,
giving me hope.
Yeah, you give me hope too. We've all got to. Why don't you come on down here and make a show? There's probably time slots open. You sound like you could do it. You've got shows in you.
I studied film and broadcasting.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like you'd be great. You'd be a natural.
Well, so is this a filtered call, or did it make it on air?
You're on the air now. You're on the air, sir. I appreciate your call. There's a lot of, it's the manufacture of consent. You know, they get people so zoned out watching sports. Excuse me, Warrior fans, or into the romance or the Viagra and all this stuff that we're not really thinking about what's being done behind just right. You know, like the Bilderberg conference and.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. You mentioned sports. They've totally co-opted every sport into some propaganda, patriotism thing. It's making me sick. In fact, I have trouble going to Giants games now and taking my cap off. I think everyone should start flying the stars and stripes upside down, and let's just make it a public, discussion openly. Politics and religion shouldn't be behind closed doors. It should be out in the open, in the sunlight, where people can see what the hell's going on. And all this consumerism, let's just get people to, shop locally and buy, handcrafted goods, and, stop buying all this cheap plastic shit from China. Those poor slave laborers in China, my heart goes out to them, and that we're just so dumbed down and under attack by the environment and what we put in our bodies. I consume my fair amount of alcohol. I'm self-medicating, and it's, the one thing I'm doing that probably is keeping me sane is, knowing that I can go have a beer somewhere and try to, process all this crap that's going on in the world.
Yes. They want us to be depressed and fight with each other, have a lot of racial tension, and talk about endlessly things that would make us angry at each other, like finances and the banks, and we're mad at each other, and there's a lot of stories that went by. They're on Twitter. I tweeted some of them, but yeah, you're right. I totally agree with you. What you're saying.
Divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book, and people need to start opening their eyes.
And the cures for cancer are being suppressed?
Yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on. But we got to start with this election. Bernie Sanders, I had the pleasure of meeting Elizabeth Warren. I was actually working on an elevator at the Westin St. Francis, I guess they call it now. I'm on the outside of the building on top of an elevator, and I see her walk by, and I said hi. She came over and literally reached outside of the building to shake my hand. If we could get Bernie and Warren on the same ticket, man, they'd be unstoppable.
Yes, they would.
So let's do it, man. Get some of these high-tech folks to help me develop this window or this open door voting registry where we can check on our votes. If you're afraid your employer might want to know what you're doing, but we can do it in an open manner in which you could be anonymous yet check on your vote, make sure it's getting counted and tabulated correctly.
Yeah, please.
Let's get some callers, some listeners involved, and let's make something happen.
Tweet me. I've got over 1,000 followers. Start with me. I got a few really followers that actually maybe even read my stuff. I don't know.
Let's do it. Listen, I'm going to let some other folks call in, man. Keep up the good work. I'll try to get a hold of you.
What's your name?
For sure.
What's your name?
Brendan.
So yeah, feel free to call in. Thank you, and give me a follow. I'll follow you back.
Okay, man. Thanks.
All right. Cheers. That was great, Brendan. I appreciated his call. He sounds like he's fired up, and that's the kind of attitude we need. People who are fired up and ready to go on and fight the good fight with us. That was the Bilderberg. They deployed high-tech jamming to shut down the communications, and let's see, mainstream media ignored while there are a lot of other stories that are on here. I'm not going to go through them now. It's been a while since I think that's the mission moratorium. The mission moratorium is going to be on the ballot to stop building. Caller, hello, welcome.
Hey, Denise, great show. Yeah, Brandon sounded good. This is Psychic Frank.
Hey, Psychic Frank, whose
Well,
show is
this
1 week from today.
A disaster, it's got to stop this. They just can't, it's just crazy with the NRA and the gun manufacturers are out of control. But, all day long on every channel, it was all day. If it bleeds, it leads. Now, the Supreme Court was supposed to come out with some rulings. Nobody knows what happened there. There's a lot of things happening in the world today. The fast track went by, the international trade thing, something went past. Who knows? Because every station is just over and over. Now they got the Beatles. Now they know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall. Love to turn you on. Now, I'm not making a joke of it, but it's a tragedy and all that. But other things, I think it might have been the CIA, the shadow government, making that kid do it, so that way they could take the heat off. I know that's paranoia. That's total paranoia when I hear myself say that out loud. But you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There was something. Isn't it a coincidence that this would happen on such an amazing day? Just imagine if this didn't happen and people got wind of that fast trade thing going by. They'd all be protesting. I don't know.
It's the first day of Ramadan.
Oh, the first day of Ramadan. Elizabeth's here. We're watching your show.
Hey, Elizabeth, how you doing, girl?
I don't know. You're not Richard Rance. I don't know why I called up to rant a little, but I'm all respectful that this was the saddest, horrible day. But other things happened that America needs to know about, and it's suspicious how we're never going to know about them now because of this.
Yeah, well, I got to talk about the 22-member task force that was just created by Scott Wiener and a couple other of the supervisors.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt there.
No, that's okay. I want you to call in again, though, if you like. I've only got like 9 minutes or so.
Oh, I know. Okay.
Okay.
Can't wait to hear what you're going to say. Okay,
Watch
thanks.
Psychic Frank next Thursday at 5 o'clock. This channel. And he's got a lot to tell you. He's a great friend of mine, and I always will be. Now, we want to talk about, I want to let you know that there a 22-member cannabis task force was set up at the Board of Supervisors. They've got to have 22 people all show up for this meeting. Good luck with that. I mean, to get a quorum, they have to have less than 5 members missing, so that means 17 of them have to show up, or they won't have quorum. They all just have to go back home. We saw how that used to go with just 17 people on the task force, and imagine if they have 22. And it was set up at the Rules Committee, and Fiona Ma was there speaking. She was from the Board of Equalization. And, the Board of Equalization wants to make sure that nobody gets to really have a good ballot initiative. They want to keep ballot initiatives from interfering with their agenda. And it's not good. There's some bad things going on with medical cannabis, and I promised Shona I was going to talk about it, and this is it. They talked about they're anticipating legalization and land use issues around it. It's sold in neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods you can't buy cannabis, and all neighborhoods should share actually the burden. I think, don't you? Prop P passed in 1991, our first dispensary in 1992, when Fiona Ma was on the Board of Supervisors. Now, that was really sweet. They dealt with the AIDS crisis and wasting syndrome, and so that's how medical cannabis got started. First place in the country, in the world, really, to use in the Western world, let's say. She's on the Board of Equalization. She was on the Board of Supervisors. She was one of the 2 speakers. The other one was Terrence Allen of the Entertainment Commission. Now, there will be 2 ballot initiatives in 2016, and there will be revisions to AB 266, which is not very good either. And Prop 215 passed 25 years ago, and there's still no state regulations. Maybe we don't need them. They're looking for problems that aren't there. It's not like people are laying in the streets like they were with alcohol. So, and they still are. We don't need them all up in our business. Cannabis isn't alcohol. It's not. So the industry stakeholders have been meeting for 4 months, and people want to make sure the ballot initiatives are doable Fiona Ma to work with a task force, worked with Weiner and Mark and Jane Kim, working to legalize, legislate tourist consumption also, where tourists can smoke and where they can tax it and what kind of products to sell, like edibles can be sold in what restaurants and where, you know, and so they don't want to tax it so much that the underground market takes it over. I don't see anything wrong with whoever wants to grow pot, grow it, and do what you want with it. That's just me. I'm from the 60s. I'm a hippie, and that's how I am. So, through all this talk of controlling an herb that hasn't caused problems, really, that I can see, just keep it away from kids. That's fine. That's fair enough. I'm all for that. And it should be easy enough to keep it away from them, unless they actually need it to stop seizures. They talk about Wild West situation. Now, we do need union labor. And, the boss of dispensary was there to lend his help. So we want to talk about, now I've got some text in here, I'm going to paraphrase, as I want to get all this information before I go off the air today. There's a couple minutes left. Now, Fiona Ma co-sponsored to amend, and Jane Kim actually kind of is coming to the rescue, hopefully. Jane Kim didn't even know that they had this meeting, set up this task force that I just laid out for you. That task force is supposed to take care of recreational cannabis when it's legalized. That's their main concern that they say they have, which is fair enough. You have to figure out how to tax it. They had the Entertainment Commission, Board of Equalization, and so let's see. I've got she wanted to amend it. Now the Board of Equalization is Fiona Ma with a man named Kuhlman engineering a proposal for state cannabis law, and she didn't forward me the link, but that's fine enough. So look for that, and I want to talk some about Ross Mercarimi now. I've got a few minutes left, so I get to talk about him. Now, Ross, at the end I'm going to show a video of how the sheriffs behave in San Francisco in the past. It's going to be the last 2 minutes of how the sheriff's department used to behave, and sometime when I have Ross on this show, and I will, I'm going to show him that video, and maybe we'll have a laugh over it. But I really admire Ross. I'm going to work his campaign. I believe he can do a fabulous job. All the police chiefs in the state are asking him what is he doing to keep the jail population down and keep the recidivism rate down. And he's into bail. He wants to talk about bail reform. So he shut down the 6th floor of the jail and combined it with, the 850 Bryant jail. He shut down the 6th floor with the 7th floor in San Bruno. They're using that now. They need no jail. They don't need a jail. We're trying to make it so San Francisco doesn't need a jail. Did you hear me? I know it sounds weird, huh? But if we can have strategies like pre-trial diversion, have electronic monitoring, or, alternatives. There's other alternatives to going to jail. Bail reform. I mean, why are poor people having a high bail that they can't pay while a child molester gets out on $400,000 that he can easily afford? And it just isn't fair. Somebody goes to jail and is rotting in jail right now. How many people are rotting in jail for having drunk a beer or done something on the street in the Tenderloin? I'm always seeing them getting tickets, and they're going to jail for those tickets eventually. So yeah, it's really, so too many mentally ill end up in jail instead of the beds where they're supposed to be, having the mental illness treated. So I don't have time for all this, but I want to show you one of Ross Mercarimi's, the sheriff's departments, how they used to treat people. Now this is going to be at the end. I guess I'll wait a second. I've still got a few seconds. It's sort of like the jailers are more or less still like the medieval times. Just lock them up and let them rot. And so Ross Mercarimi wants to follow the Scandinavian model of how they rehabilitate people rather than punish them with torture. Really, they torture people, kill them, and it hasn't changed. So there's a they want to deal with the psychiatric and the patients and substance abuse and the jail was going to be demolished at 850 Bryant because of the '89 quake. It had nothing much to do with demolishing it for any other reason. It's been slated to be demolished since '89, so that's one thing. So I want to play this video, and then I'm going to make the final announcements. So that was an NSA from 1962. That was a protest. But now Ross didn't really go against dissent. Ross thought dissent was okay, but dissent is not welcome at City Hall anymore. Protests are discouraged. So we don't want to go back to those days where a protest was treated with, water. They'd shoot water down the stairs and then throw you down the stairs, and wash people down. Police brutality is what we called it, the hippies. And so yeah, it looks like we're going back to this Orwellian world. Let's hope we don't. And I want to say in closing that keep filming the cops. Just keep filming them. Everybody, if you don't have a phone that takes videos, get one if you can. Always have it charged up. Legalize 2010 MCLR. That's going to be. We're going to collect signatures for that. I didn't update about that. That'll come in a future show. And please give money to Bayvac if you can. Watch Psychic Frank next Thursday, and Let's Talk Sports is next. Bye-bye.